User joined your channel.
Hello, Jonathan.
Good evening and welcome to the inaugural round of our Drivers' Championship 1958 edition, coming to you tonight from the Buenos Aires circuit in Argentina. And it's promising to be a very, very interesting season with many manufacturers, many different engines, and 3 different tire suppliers for our drivers to deal with. And a new mod for everyone to get to grips with too, with one of my favorite things, fading brakes. And with me in the booth tonight I have Alberto Ibanez. Good evening, Alberto.
Good evening, everybody. We're very pleased here to open a new season of ISO Racing 2022. Wow. Here we are, and it's going to be a fantastic year, like you already outlined it. It's a new mod. Its physics as realistic as ever, very refined. And I must say that I've been enjoying a lot just watching the cars go around the track. It feels it feels so nice, so realistic to see them four-wheel drifting all around. But there are many limitations and many new issues that drivers will have to contend with. No, Jonathan?
There definitely is. I mean, just the fact that you you have definitely the opportunity to keep the same tires on the car and gain a lot of pit time through doing so, especially if you have the 4-spoke wheels that you need a bit of extra time to undo the wheel nuts, so to speak, compared to some of the other cars who have, even by 90 standard, was very good still. The central wheel nut situation going on, so there's that, and obviously, as I mentioned, the brakes and the differences in how the cars handle. I, for one, in pre-season testing, I tried the cars and was trying to see if I wanted to partake, but I simply couldn't consistently keep the car on track. So all praise to all the drivers who partakes in this championship and is able to keep the cars on track, because it certainly won't be easy.
Yeah, these cars, as it was back then, they are not that complicated to keep on the track if you are driving like 80% or 90%. The problem is when you are going for the limit. And an even more compounding problem is that you have here the engine overheating, and once it starts overheating, it's very hard to get it back to a normal temperature. You have the tires that are very hard. You should be able to do a full race on the same set, but at the same time, they are stiff, they are bias ply, they are somehow complicated. So this is a race about management, about pacing yourself. You need to really be on top of the car, and you need to hit that sweet spot between being quick enough, but at the same time not forcing the car too much, not overheating the engine, not overheating the tires, not overheating the brakes, because that's another subject that we will be talking a lot about, Jonathan. We have here drum brakes, and not just the usual disc brakes.
We all know the very, very definitive limitations of drum brakes, especially, at least for me, living up in Sweden, where you have very cold winters and a lot of salt on the road. And yeah, not a great combination. to say the least.
Yeah, those drum brakes. I mean, I remember having in my first motorbike drum brakes on the rear because that's the usual thing that they put when they want to save money.
Mm-hmm.
And it was horrible because it was all about either you brake, either you don't.
Yeah, it was either you stay on the bike and no problem, or only the front wheel locked,
Yeah,
and it would be
not much in between.
over the
And on top
steering.
of that, brake fade.
Indeed, indeed. Which we most likely will be seeing in this race, because there are a couple of very heavy braking zones around this place.
Mhm.
So there are some opportunities for that, shall we say. Speaking of the track itself, it's the Autodromo de Buenos Aires Oscar y Juan Galvez. In your typical way, the track is named after Oscar and Juan Galvez. I'm butchering those names, but that's...
Okay,
I,
I'll
I
sub you on
know...
that one. It's Oscar and Juan Galvez.
Thank you.
That's actually how it's spelled in Spanish. Argentinian Spanish, which is very soft and nice sounding. For us Spaniards, it's always a very nice accent to hear because it's always so, I don't know, so sweet. We always like to hear that one.
So it's a bit like... is it... I'm trying to remember the exact location for that English accent. Can't do so. But it's a bit like what the women would go for if they had a choice, say.
Oh, sure. Sure.
So the track itself, to go back to that, 3.912 kilometers long. Some very tricky places around the track, and our drivers will be going for 80 laps tonight, which will equal just under 313 kilometers, which by modern standards is a very long trip.
It is, yes. And in these cars, because remember, I mean, we could simplify this thing saying that these things have like teapot technology because they were back in 58 very, very primary cars. I mean, the engines were starting to get more power. Many things were learning in the Second World War about the engines and all that. And so the technology was starting to ramp up. But essentially, they were driving on the same tires they had before the war, pre war. Only thing is that they were starting to get into lighter materials, into better engines and things like that, because in the war, the mechanics progressed a lot, but the tires, nobody paid attention to them because, well, they were basically using the flight planes and they, well, were only using them to land. So it was not really something that they were too much worried about. So tire technology here is very much surpassed and brake technology by the engine power. At the same time, the engine is going to be overheating. And in the track map Jonatan has showed, you can see that there is some like two distinct sections in this track where you have a quicker one where the drivers will be going full throttle for that high parabolica there. It's not the big parabolica of the full circuit, that's right, but it's still a very demanding corner because these cars are always on the edge and you need to have the proper balance to go to there. And that one and the next right-hander, they are going to put a big toll on the tires. So this is a race where we are going to see who is able to actually keep the car safe, who is actually able to keep the car in the temperatures that are the working ones and without any risk of blowing the engines, and who is going to save the tires. Because either you see the drivers going for a single pit stop, and that's going to be an absolute waste of time in the pits. That's not what they did in real life, but you can do it if you want. Or they are going to try to do the whole race in the same tires, which is going to be a hairy proposition, especially towards the end of the race.
For sure, for sure. And obviously also we will see which drivers are able to save the brakes. Because based on what we've seen previously, not everyone is able to be kind to the brakes either.
Yeah.
Quickly, according to the 1958 FIA Formula One World Championship, regulations in terms of points. The points were scored from first down to fifth place in the version of 8, 6, 4, 3 and 2. And both the Drivers' and Manufacturers' Cup were contested with that point scheme. To be noted is that only the best 6 results will count towards each Drivers' and Manufacturers' Championship total. And also 1 point will be awarded to the driver setting the fastest race lap in the Drivers' Championship only. So not the fastest qualifying lap, the fastest race lap. And a manufacturer will only receive points in the Manufacturer's Cup for its highest placed car in each race. So say we have a Ferrari first, second and third, they would only score points for the Ferrari placed in first place. Then let's say the Cooper placed fourth in the race would score points for second place in the standings. I think at least that's how it's to be interpreted.
Mm-hmm.
And now, without further ado, let's get out on track there and see if we can't drum up some on-track action, someone to watch. Oh, looks like we're moving over. What? Did a restart warm-up, I wonder? Well, while we wait, let's have a look at the trivia question instead then. So, the trivia question for you all to ponder this evening is who actually set the fastest race lap in the 1958 Argentine Grand Prix? Was it A. Juan Manuel Fangio? Was it B. Sterling Moss? Or was it C. Mike Hawthorne? I gotta say I got it wrong earlier when I saw the question. I would take it, Alberto, you have a very decent idea of who it may or may not be.
Oh, well, I'm usually quite bad at these questions, but fastest lap in the Argentina Grand Prix, Jesus Christ. I mean, 3 mythical drivers. The easy thing would be to go with A, Juan Manuel Fangio, but who knows?
That's as good a strategy as any. We will find out later on in this event. Let's see, looks like there's just some last minute problem solving going on, so just to bring you up on what is coming up in the near future. We have next weekend on Sunday, January the 16th, the first round of 6 in our Lukas Vidra Trophy, the 2022 edition. It is using the BMW Pro Car M1s, and it'll be the British Grand Prix at Brands Hatch that we will be thundering around. At the moment we don't have a broadcast plan for that, but I believe there are a few cars still available if anyone watching would like to have a go in this one. The cars are fantastic to drive, and the track is definitely a challenge, shall we say, driving lesser downforce cars than F1 cars around it. And the weekend after that, on January the 23rd, the 1987 Kart Championship gets underway, round 1 of 15, for the Checker 200, once again coming to you from Phoenix, and I'll be back in the booth for that one. And with any luck, I believe, if I'm not misremembering, Ryan Walker, our Scotsman, will join me in the booth for that one. That's promising to be a very interesting opening round. Phoenix always throws up the odd curveball, and
Yeah, he should be joining you. because we will be pairing you with in the kart series, but he will be doing in the road courses, and I will be sorry, I will be around in the road courses, and he will be in the ovals where I will be driving. If driving is an appropriate word for a wild-eyed passenger,
Hol-
but in any case,
holding on, trying to modulate the throttle and keeping it off the walls. Eh?
something like that, yeah.
I completely get the feeling and the general situation. Gotta say. So yeah, let's see if we have any action out on track at the moment.
Yeah, drivers are being briefed now, so we should be going to the race session soon. But yeah, its first race is a completely new season, very different cars, and there must be a good intensive briefing here for the drivers because many people have been practicing, obviously, but practicing and lapping in traffic and all that is a very different matter altogether. And in these cars, one thing that we are going to be seeing this season, and I think it's important for the viewers, for the ones who are not driving, these cars were so different than modern cars. I mean, the passing here will not happen outbreaking the other guy. This is the usual thing that you see in modern series. No, the passing here is something more related to the error or the pace that the car has related to the one who is behind. So we will be seeing many passes that happen actually at the exit of the corners and not actually on the entry of them. On the entry of them, you will see it should be lapped cars letting the other guys by. But when you are looking about fighting for position, you will be seeing more of a people doing a fight with two cars parallel to each other and doing many laps together. And at some point, one of them making an error, or the other one with a better tire situation being able to slip by smoothly on the straights. So it's not. It's exciting. It's very interesting, but it's not the same thing that you would be seeing in modern Formula One or contemporary Formula One or what you want to call it. I mean, the brakes are not
Hey,
going to be
wake up.
here something so important because, well, to be honest, they were nearly non existent in these cars.
Okay, and I just had a message that it was a that there is a server restart incoming here.
Yep.
Fortunately, some small issues and niggly bits going on at the moment. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a very demanding series for the drivers. I suppose while we have some off time for a few minutes, to get you somewhat up to pace with the actual race in real life, the race in real life had a very small entry list. There were 10 cars, and they were one Cooper for the Walker Racing team. That was a year-old Cooper at the time. I believe the Walker Cooper is still a one-year-old T43 chassis, if I'm not mistaken. There were.
Yeah, the real life
Sorry, go
race,
on.
it was a non championship race, I think. So it had a it had actually a very small entry with 10 cars only, one Cooper, three Ferraris, and six Maseratis.
Hmm.
This is some info gently provided by Juha Boss, one of our main historians in this thing, very exhaustive in the info he has collected. And the reason was that non being really contesting a championship race, many of the teams decided to pass on it and actually wait a bit more until they came to Europe. Ferrari brought one new car for Hawthorne, the only 1958 car on the grid, and two 1957 cars actually.
Hmm. But to be
Um,
noted, all the cars on our grid will be 58 cars in terms of the
Yes,
Ferraris.
exactly. I mean, in our car, in our grid, we will be like simplifying that in the benefit of the healthier competition. Maserati sent two lightweight cars for Fangio and Menditiqui, and they were entered through the Scuderia Sudamericana banner. Cooper actually had only one car, Rob Walker's privately entered T43 with a climate engine, and Lotus were simply absent. BRM also missed Argentina, and Van Wall were mostly in the same boat, not present there. Moss, however, was alive to drive for Rob Walker. So actually, in this race, in real life, you would see Sir Sterling Moss in Rob Walker's car, whereas here we will be having the full grid of the Coopers, the Van Walls, and everything.
Indeed. And to be noted in that, what was a non-championship race as such, despite the 9 Italian stallions, if we put it that way, the Italian racing cars, it was the Cooper that came out on top, possibly down to two things. One, Sterling Moss was very nice on the tires, and it was Sterling Moss driving the car. After all, Sterling Moss was a very, very good racing driver.
Yeah, we're not going to discover Sir Sterling now, right?
I suppose we'll have to wait and see.
So let's see. The track is loading now.
Well then, let's for me to jump into the server once again as well then. And if we have more downtime, we'll be talking more about the different cars for this particular event and why not certain manufacturers specifically didn't show up. But for now, we'll leave it at that. For any of you very interested in finding out the whys, whats and hows of the real 1958 season.
Yeah, and actually, excuse me because I was going back and forth with this. The Argentina Grand Prix, of course, was part of the official schedule. It was a championship race. It's just that, as we have mentioned, many teams were passing on that one because of the difficulty of shipping the cars overseas, not having the cars ready, and all that stuff. So the championship actually comprised 11 races. I'm looking at the notes again, but they only did 10, in fact, because the fourth race was the Indianapolis 500. Yes, the Indianapolis 500 was actually part of the Grand Prix Championship back then. It's just that nobody went there to contest it. They left it to the Americans, and that's the reason why you have several Americans, the ones who raced back then, scoring points in the Formula One Championship, even if they actually never raced in what we Europeans understand as the Formula One Championship.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean the championship was over 10 races, and as you say, because of the drop scores, that was one of the reasons that many of the teams and the drivers actually eh, passed on several of the races because economically they were not worth for them. So they were doing the ones, they were concentrating on the ones that were important for them because they knew if they won, for example, 6 races, they were absolutely win the championship
Mm.
because of the drop scores. So of course they would usually do more than that so as to be able to pick the best results. But when it was about going so far away as to the southern hemisphere and all that, nobody would be willing to do that so easily with the expenses and all that was implied on that. So the real championship, so to speak, for the Europeans, it started at round number 2, which is the Monaco Grand Prix that we will be doing here next month.
Definitely so.
Okay, so the warm up is about to end with the briefing over.
Well, just to hopefully maybe
And
have a
I think it would
chance.
be a good moment to quickly go over the driver lineup before we go to the grid.
That we can do,
And
hopefully
basically
showing the
indicate
cars too.
yeah, basically indicate the hot spots here on our grid.
That too. Just going to let it
So
load.
in that regard, um, and looking at the teams in our entry list, we have Ferrari, which has Tim Hiller driving, alongside with Brian Janik and Luciano Rocha. There's Vanwell, the mythical Vanwell, Vanderbilt Products Limited, that has Anders Nilsson, Ray Ridal, and Michael Drexler. We have then the BRM Owen Racing Organization with David Saber, Adam Hackman, and Francisco Amaral. We have the single Joe Bonnier, the Swede. Jacob Fredriksson is impersonating him in a Maserati T2 Leggera. Dave Miller and Simon Watman are going to be driving for Team Lotus, a car that was underpowered, but as usual with the brilliant handling. Keijo Michiels will be driving for Scuderia Ferrari with the lone yellow entry Ferrari, the one that stands out in the crowd. Then we got Cooper Car Company, the only car that has the rear engine, which is Bruno Chacon, Bruno Pagiola, and Lewis Stephens. And then we have August Watering, Thiago Canola, and Ruben Fernandez in Scuderia Centro Sud, which are joining in a Maserati 250. Juha Boss will be driving a private Cooper rear-engine car for RIC Walker and Racing Team. Then we have Jules Bouchard, who will be impersonating our own Spanish Paco Godilla, Francisco Godilla Sales, in a Maserati Leggera. Angel Mai will be impersonating, very appropriately, Maria Teresa de Filippis in the Maserati 250. And finally, our own Italian hotshot, Gabriele Del Piccolo, who will be driving as Giorgio Scarlatti in a Maserati 250 Leggera.
Indeed so, and one of the things to note is that the driver driving the car that won the race in real life is David Junt in that RRC Walker Racing Team.
Yes, in this case it will be a stand-in because of COVID problems, actually, for Ruben Fernandez.
Unfortunately, but
we wish him a healthy recovery and see him very soon on the track.
And on that note, I also
racing finally.
And on that note, I also know, by the way, that Jacob Fredriksson in the Joe Bonnier Ferrari also has been down with COVID, but he decided to try and test yesterday, and it appears he felt he should be able to go the distance, but with how tired you get from the whole thing, we probably shouldn't expect any major heroics from Jacob tonight. As it would seem, we are moving over sessions.
See if we can get finally racing.
Thank you very much, Berlin. We are very happy with how it's all turned out so far, both from a driving standpoint and obviously from how beautiful the cars look.
Yeah, they do. I mean, the RSM mod, it must be praised because the models are absolutely beautiful. They reflect very well how these cars looked back then. And it's always amazing to see them moving. I think the physics from Richard Wilkes are, as usual, spot on, absolutely. And one of the things where you can tell it is how the cars move. You can look at the old footage, the vintage footage from TV, cinema, and you can also see the cars driving nowadays, even if they are obviously on different tires and suspensions and all that because they have been updated. But still, I mean, the way these cars move around and the way you have to drive them, it represents, and that's what we aim to recreate, the challenge that the drivers back then were faced when driving them.
Definitely so, and it was a drivers' championship as such. Obviously, just like in modern day F1, if you're in one of the fastest cars, you obviously have a higher chance of winning the drivers' championship, but to some extent, the driver definitely can make a difference in these cars.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in these cars, there are quicker and there are slower cars. Obviously, that's always been the case in Formula One. But the driver here, back then in '58, he could still make the difference. Absolutely. And so, hopefully, we should be seeing here how the quality drivers are able to actually stand above their cars and do some things that were maybe unexpected at some point.
Definitely so. And listen to that, the car's starting to get ready for the race.
Yeah.
And also look at them on the grid. What a gorgeous sight. Oh dear.
More car joinings, Brian Janik in the pole. And before we go through the grid on the warm-up lap, I think it would be about time to pick our favorite.
I have bigger issues, my FPS just dropped.
Oops.
Yep, that's unfortunate. Well, hopefully it'll work.
We'll then focus on a single car and driver view. And they are off for the warm-up lap. So what would be your
Nope,
pick?
the race is already on. The race is already on. So the race is underway. Brian Janik started from pole position, but Juha Boos went by him and is up into first position. Oh, and all of them sideways through there. Look at that. Juha Boos in the Walker car up in the lead, and look at that, all the cars streaming through there.
I see many cars here smoking the tires in the braking zone. That's not going to be very good in the long term.
No, indeed not.
But in any case, the Cooper engines seem to be hot here. I mean, obviously the engine on the rear allows them to be more agile on this twisting section of the circuit. But as soon as it opens up a bit in the straights, we should see the Ferrari power having something to say.
Can't change anything.
So it's Juha Boos with David Jandt right behind, Tim Hille, Brian Janik, and Anders Nilsson. Behind them, there is a bit of a melee. These drivers are trying to establish a pecking order. Keijo Mikiels comes out on top of that group in front of Dave Miller. He's following Lewis Stephens, who in turn is following Anders Nilsson, our own impersonation of Sir Sterling Moss. Tim Hill and Brian Janik are starting to dice out.
Indeed so, and it looks like most of the drivers
still in the lead and faced. There's David Young right behind him. And if I know something about David Young, he's the kind of driver who can drive smoothly behind someone else, but absolutely loves to be on his own. He's the guy who concentrates best by being on top, on front, driving on his own. So he should be like looking for the appropriate situation to overtake Juha Boos and then be able to mind his own business. Brian Janik getting there very sideways with that Ferrari and his teammate Tim Hille. And I must say, we have been talking a lot about this while we were watching the cars practice. Tim Hille looks really, really, really nice for this championship because he's a very smooth driver. He knows very well how to do things with these cars. And one of the things where you can actually see it is the way that the nose.
Oh no! Keijo Mikiels is. Oh, he holds on. Does he really hold on to that? Oh, maybe not. Maybe not.
Well,
oh. Oh no, and Stevens all sideways too. Wow!
Yeah, he's KO sideways Mikil for a reason, isn't he?
Well, quite. That was by far the most sideways I've seen any of these cars, and anyone getting away with it, so
Yeah,
looks
he's
like...
probably having a lot of fun. The question is if that will be something that he can keep for the whole race. Oh, look at that. I mean, this is Tokyo Drift. No KO. I don't think that's going to bring you to the top.
Well, he'll have fun not getting that, though.
I mean, KO's driving skills are not to be questioned. No need for this demonstration in that regard, KO. We trust you. But yeah, on the long run, this is going to hurt the tires and the engine.
Definitely so. So, looks like the top-placed Van Wall at the moment is in the hands of Anders Nilsson in 7th. One of the cars that actually had disc brakes back in that day, as Michiels is all sideways and Stevens sneaks past in the final turn at the hairpin. And I'd assume that's something we will see as part of the race too, where early on the Italian cars mainly had drum brakes, might run away with it, but then later the Van Wall and say the Lotus would be catching up later in the race.
When you think about disc brakes as the latest technology nowadays, it makes you lose smile. But yeah, that's
so,
how it was back then.
Definitely
Oh
so.
my goodness, Bouchard and Canola. Ooh.
Yes, caught that.
They were going sideways there.
Oh, and even more sideways through turn 2. I think Canola might have an opportunity here. No, okay.
Yeah, he's getting antsy. Whoops, there's Coxon who has spun.
That's very easy to do.
Ooh. Jesus, what a group is there. Bouchard, Canola, Coxon, Jakes, and Watman.
That's a set
I
of
think
names.
these guys are getting too antsy from the fact of seeing another car in front of them. They should take it easier.
Well, that's one of those, that's the way to do it, but in the moment, not so easy. As I noticed, we unfortunately have our first retiree from the race. Salvatore Seringiano has retired from the race.
Well, that's a shame.
Oh, and it
Because he
looks
was
to...
looking very well, very quick on the server and all that, but yeah, when it comes to racing, it's not so easy, isn't it?
Indeed, and it's unfortunately... Oh, he snagged a brake on the way into turn 1, got all crossed up and sideways, and then hard impact on the outside barriers, and it looked like he had a little bit of contact as well with... That's August Watering, actually, who may have just tinily helped him on the way, but unfortunately Seringiano had lost it way before that contact was made.
And Juha Boss seems to have done his homework. He has prepared the race well. He's going there with a small gap already in the lead, whereas Brian Janik is hounding David Junt for the second place. Tim Hill is there in a patient third one. Fourth one. That should be actually behind these three. But I think that's the spot that could be rewarded because we're only 4 laps into an 80 laps race.
Indeed.
Ooh, Tim Hill there pecking some dirt on the tire, getting sideways. Thus, speaking of sideways, KO Mikhail is getting, of course, sideways on the exit of the turn. I just wonder how long these tires will stand that abuse.
It'll be interesting to see, but here comes Yannick flying down the front straight and up into second past David Junt.
Some Ferrari power for you.
Quite. That's certainly one thing you have never been able to fault the Ferrari racing side for. They've always put a very, very powerful engine in their cars. Sometimes maybe to their detriment.
Well, as Mr. Ferrari himself always said, my cars win the races, my drivers lose them.
Quite so, as the leaders come up on Aniel May, that is, I believe, having to let the leading cars by. Oh, and actually looked like off the road, unfortunately, with a spin, but no major issue. So Yannick now second, as we mentioned. Hiller down to fourth, Steven fifth. Sideways Michiels in sixth at the moment. Nilsson seventh. Miller in eighth, doing well for Lotus, top Lotus at the moment. Ray Riddle with Jakob Fredriksson for close company, so Hugh Bonnier being put to very good use here. Then we have Rocha in 11th, Drexler 12th, Del Piccolo 13th. Chacon coming through here in 14th, then a bit of a gap down to Canola and Coxon, 15th and 16th.
Look at Yannick now challenging for the lead.
Bouchard and Yates coming through here as the fight for the lead is on, so let's move back up. No, not quite, and Stevens going for Hiller in the meantime, trying to go round outside in turn 1. I don't think that'll work, Lewis. Not that time, but nicely done and a really nice slide. Just look at these cars through these turns.
Absolutely beautiful four-wheel sliding. Brian Yannick now looking left and right how to pass Juha Boss.
I think his best option once again would be with a good exit out of the hairpin the final turn. Because I do think that Cooper or those Coopers are somewhat of a better car in that twisty infield section.
Yeah, of course, the engine isn't anywhere as good as the Ferrari one. But in the twisted section, that central engine, it does something in favor of the handling of the car.
Indeed, it looks like Yannick has a good exit here. So that should be an opportunity unless he misses a gear or anything.
I should say that some years later, one engineer told Mr. Enzo Ferrari that it was about time they put the engine on the back of the car. Look at Yannick, look at Yannick,
Ooh,
look
he's
at Yannick.
definitely trying.
Oh.
Oh. Good on Juha for giving him the little bit of extra room. Out in the grey though, all sideways crossed up. Yannick sideways on the inside too. And Borsholz on for now. Great racing between these two. And David Jund.
That was a good wake-up call by Brian Yannick.
Indeed. And as always, David Jund keeping a watching brief just behind. Oh, as Yannick has started braking himself.
Look at that. I mean, just missed by a single meter or yard your braking point, and there goes it.
Yeah, and down to fourth, so Lewis Stevens goes past too. So I think that's Cooper,
I was saying some years
1,
ago,
2, 3.
Some years ago, an engineer told Mr. Ferrari, it was, well, some years ago, some years after this 58th season, one engineer once told Mr. Ferrari, Mr. Enzo, the commendatore himself, that it was about time that they put the engine on the back of the car. And he said, look, I've always seen the horses in front of the cart in my life. And it was dismissed for, I think, 2 more seasons until he had to cave in and basically put the engine back there.
It's a reason as good as any to not do it, though.
I guess so. So we're 8 laps into the race. 1/10 of the race. And we are already seeing some things. Jesus Christ. Keijo Michiels is doing a perfect Tokyo Drift impersonation. I mean, I don't know how long his tires will last, but as they do, we're sure going to have a beautiful TV time here.
Definitely so. And looks like Gabriele Del Piccolo might be sizing up a move on Drexler.
It's gone now. Oh, that's a car in the grass. That's that.
Notice there's a good fight
it's
going
Mike
on.
Olson.
Oh dear.
Mike Olson in the Cooper is in the grass. Let's see if he's able to resume.
Hopefully he will be. I noticed there was a good scrap going on here. Saber, Hackman, Buchard and Kowalski. They were swapping positions left, right and center, I presume through
Yannick in
turn
the
1.
grass again.
And Kowalski with a nice move there. Let's move back up the field again. Based on what you were saying, it's getting a bit heated. I can see the dirt on Yannick's tires, and Michiel's trying to size him up. He's up the inside, he should have an opportunity, but it looks like he backed off. Looks like Michiels is happy to stay where he is at the moment, just looking after the car and tires for the time being. Well, looking after the tires might be a bit of a over claiming, but at least he's looking after the brakes, I reckon.
Meanwhile, David Jones, in his usual cool thinking way, seems to have taken a step back and is following Juha Boss, which will happen as long as Juha is able to keep a rhythm.
Oh, he held on to it again. Yes, indeed, and Lewis Stevens in an equal Cooper.
Fantastic third for him.
That's very impressive, and I mean, he's only some 3 odd seconds behind David Jund, and that's no mean feat.
Yeah, we're seeing many cars here, many drivers that are able to like do or produce a lot of fireworks, go quick and do many things. But look, the question is, who is able to do this past the 50 laps mark? Because these tires and the engines and all that, I mean, they are not going to withstand the abuse. So it's all a matter of who is able to get the best balance between doing a quick lap or going as quick as possible and at the same time preserving the car. And I can see, if you go back in the grid, there are some guys there, like Anders Nilsson, for example, Jakob Fredriksson, or Dave Miller, who are minding their own business and doing their a very like steady race, and in the end this could pay a lot of dividends.
Definitely so.
Guillermo Michiels. There's a yellow versus red Ferrari fight there. He's really putting some pressure on Tim Hille, who is minding his own business.
Well, actually, I think Hille just got back past Michiels.
Look at Michiels, I mean.
Well, if we want entertainment, all we need to do is train our cameras
Exactly.
on KO
I don't
in
know
these
what
cars.
to say, but I mean, this is a typical guy that if it was everything about voting by the spectators, he would be winning the races.
Indeed,
sure.
Indeed. Based on what you were saying, by the way, in regards to doing your own race and just looking after the cars and stuff, I reckon both Nilsson and Miller are in a very good spot.
Yeah.
With both their disc brakes on the cars, obviously, and at least from what I've seen, not being involved in any battling so far. Well, as I say that, Jakob Fredriksson ain't too far behind Miller. Well, that's a set of cars further back than I would have expected. The BRMs. I think the top BRM is currently 19th in the hands of David Saber. Oh, and unfortunately Mike Olsen is by the side of the road again,
rejoin.
but
He's trying to rejoin.
That's a sporting
He
rejoin
does so
there.
safely.
And there seemed to be a slight sound issue.
Some surprising things so far. We can see 15th Richard Coxon, 16th Thiago Canola, 13th is Gabriele Del Piccolo. They are 20 something to 30 seconds of the lead. But then again, what does that mean in these kind of races? I'm really curious to see by the end of the race who is there and who isn't, because we could very well see here people who are fast and furious. They are there at the top for the whole race and that, and 3/4 into the race the engine blows, the tires let go. Because we have our drivers used to more modern cars, but these things, I mean, they can be fun to drive. They are somewhat easier because you don't have the downforce and all those things that were later incorporated. But at the same time, well, this is raw driving experience. I mean, it's oops, Angel made they're spinning in the cape in front of the leaders. But as I was saying, this is a raw experience, and you have to take care of the car. It's nearly 3 hours of racing at some of the venues, so it's something about pacing yourself, and we will see who can do that.
Indeed. It's very prominent also now that I'm watching the Lotus in the hands of Dave Miller and Jakob Ferguson in the Joe Ferrari behind the size difference between some of the chassis in this championship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like looking at an old Bugatti compared to a Formula Ford car between the Ferrari and the Lotus.
Yep.
And that's also Ferguson passed, by the way.
Kills. Oh my goodness.
He's definitely doing a very impressive job keeping that car pointing somewhat, pointing.
No. As I was saying,
on
if
the
this
road.
was a game about giving points for style, he would be sure on top.
This definitely looks to be right down his alley, so to speak.
Another thing we were mentioning before in the warm up, before we started broadcast and all that, and I was talking about the drivers so as to get a better idea of how the driving was like. And we were all saying, man, it's a shame that because of the limitations of the game engine or whatever, we get not to see here when we are doing the broadcast what the temperature of the engine is and what the fuel amount is and all that, because it would be quite so telling of how the drivers are managing their cars.
Definitely so. I suppose it's a case of we'll have to make do with what we have. And this is a beautiful camera angle I just found on the inside of turn 2. You can really see the four-wheel drifting angle that they're putting the car through. There's some
kills. Goodness. I mean, we need to put Kayome Kills in a mid-jet car. I think that Berlin already suggested that, but Jesus. It's hard to think of someone who could beat him in a mid-jet.
They would definitely struggle to make it happen, that's for sure.
Speaking of that, did you know who actually raced in real life in midgets and was quite good at it? Our very own Bob Wilson.
Indeed.
He did. I got some pictures of him. He nicely emailed them to me, and it was nice because he was driving. He was doing something that was quite extraordinary at the time, and he was driving a rear-engine midget car. It was I don't know how to call it, experimental car. You could as well call it a Frankenstein. But whatever the case, he was really good at it. He could take care of the car and do that thing and survive, and well, that was already not worth it.
Well, I reckon just getting the chance to drive that kind of car is well worth the while, as unfortunately Jan Kowalski has retired from the race.
No.
I know he was having a very good scrap up until that point, so that's very unfortunate. Looks like
So,
that.
and David John,
Looks like
with
that
the
could have been an
race,
engine.
with the race more or less somehow developing, David John is already getting antsy and wants to get past Juha Boss. He's now putting some pressure on Boss.
I believe that's an engine, most likely. And they also have 3 cars ahead of them as well. Bouchard, Whited and Watering in old Maseratis to try and deal with. I believe at least it's...
Now, Brian Janik just scored the quickest lap of the race, which seems to indicate that he's starting to get comfortable with the car. Let's see if this is an indication that he was able to so far preserve the tires and the engine and is on for a charge for the lead. Because don't be foolish by the distances that are right now. If a driver is overdriving, he could very well drop like a stone, and someone who is nearly a minute behind could be very well on top before you know it.
And unfortunately it seems Daniel May has decided to park the car too.
Coming now to lap traffic on the top.
Yeah, that looks like a parking the car, unfortunately.
So, Boss and Junt already lapping cars. Ui, they are on the grass even. Ui. Good use of the traffic there by Juha Boss. He gained there some precious tenths of a second of relief. But David Jant is very much like a bull terrier. I mean, once he has snapped and bitten, he won't let go.
Definitely so, and now there's more traffic for them to contend with. In the form of Watering, and was able to get by. But so does Junt, and I think Junt had a better run. Not close enough to have a go though.
Oops, there goes Juha Boss too wide.
And Junt trying to get past. He is scored ahead, but Bors with a better line, inside line for this left-hander. Still side by side. Now through the next left-hander, and both of them giving each other a lot of room, and Bors holds on to the lead for now.
Good driving there.
Indeed, and I believe...
Although, I can't stop wonder if all that we are seeing is actually fireworks, because this is the first race of the season. We are looking at cars that are so different from everything we have seen before. And I have the feeling that there are some very high quality drivers like Nilsson, Coxon, Canola, and the like Del Piccolo, who are there like mid-pack, and you would think, why are those guys mid-pack? Because we all know they are really real hotshots. They are really good drivers. And I'm thinking, maybe they know something. Maybe they know better about these cars than the guys who are like hot lapping in the front.
Indeed. Ooh, Miller with a bit of an outbraking maneuver there, outbrakes himself and drops down. I was just going to say that the way that Lotus looks compared to the Ferrari, for example, and the Maserati too, to be fair, seeing it now, it sort of reminds me of very old BTCC, like the same era as this, more or less, like
Whoops.
60s.
Juha Boss just lost the lead. Or no? Or didn't he?
Oh no, he's holding on. Jun trying for the cutback, not able to do it. This graphic's definitely heating up.
But it's an error by Juha, but he seems to have recovered quite well.
Indeed. To finish my point, it sort of feels like the 60s and early 70s BTCC, where you had the minis here represented by the Lotus, and the American invasion in the form of the Ford Falcon and the Chevrolet Corvettes and the likes, where obviously the V8 monsters would thunder past anything lesser engined down the straight, but then the nimble little Mini would just more or less just ballet dance around the muscle cars in the twisty sections.
There's at least one interesting thing about the mechanicals of this car these cars that we can see in the broadcast. If you go to the cockpit view, we can see in the tachometer of the cars there is the
Oh,
I'm not sure how
the
you
teller.
call that thing in English, but the red gauge, the red needle, sorry, not the gauge, the red needle that indicates the highest you have gone so far when over revving the engine. And I'm looking at Juhabo's car, and he's in about 6,900 RPM. Junt is 7,000 RPM. So that seems to indicate that he has been pushing the car harder. At least at some points he has been over revving it much. And these engines, as we have said, they don't like at all to be over revved.
No, indeed not. And I suppose I think it's called a tachometer. Is the word I can come up
Well,
with.
tachometer is the whole gauge.
Well, true.
The red one, the red needle, we call that in Spanish chivato, which is a chivato. How would I say that?
I would say it's the engineer's lie detector.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly.
It's if anyone watching has
the
seen
giveaway.
Yeah, if anyone watching has seen the Days of Thunder.
Yeah, that one.
It's that kind of red teller, so to speak, that is in these cars too, which we can see in use here.
Maybe someone in the chat can help us in the broadcast to know what's the technical name of that thing.
Hopefully. But either way, the leading pack is more or less spread out a little bit. Although that being said, the one gaining the most time out of all this lapping is definitely Lewis Stevens. Only about 7/10 behind Junt at the moment. And Yannick about 2.2 behind there, but then it's a 5.5 second gap to Tiller, and he has another 2 seconds to Michiels, who himself has 7 seconds down to Anders Nielsen, who has 10 seconds to Jakob Fredriksson, and Fredriksson and Miller was holding each other quite a bit earlier. But that's a bit of a battle pack though, with Miller, let's see, we have Fredriksson 8th, Ray Riddle 9th, Dave Miller 10th now, and Luciano Rocha in 11th, covered by, give or take, a couple to 3 seconds.
Yeah, this dropped score thing is somehow a double-edged knife for the drivers, because on one hand, you are like somewhat forced or wished into doing very well at all races, because you really want to have nice scores there. Your 6 best scores, they need to shine out. You need to be on the podium or whatever, so you have to do your utmost. But then at the same time, it's all or nothing, because if doing all that, if taking risks, you lose the points, you are dropping scores, but at some point, it's like, no, sorry, I don't have any more scores to drop, and I need to really do well in the remaining ones. And I'd really like to have a mental scanner, so to speak, to see what's going on through the minds of many of the drivers here. Because it's so easy to say, oh, okay, I'm doing well, I'm scoring, and I'm in a position to really get one of those results that I would like to have count towards the end of the season. But then at the same time, it's like, am I taking too many risks with this?
Indeed.
In any case, things unchanged. Boss in the front, Jantes is second, but Stephen is now a closer third.
And it's interesting to note it's the Walker privately entered Coopers, 1 and 2nd, then the official Cooper Car Company entry of Stevens in 3rd. Based on company, how should we say, company politics, I reckon they would prefer Stevens first and privately entered Walker cars 2nd, 3rd.
So Yannick, there's Hille now, Michiel's back there. Not smoking so much the tires, but anyway, sideways. I'm still wondering how those tires are standing that fitting. Nilsson is 7th, Fredriksson is 8th, Wright Ridal is 9th in the other Vanderbilt Products car. Miller comes next in the Lotus. Luciano Rocha, Gabriele Del Piccolo, Ercon, Tesla. Richard Coxon is 15th. Tiago Canola is 16th. Now that's something that I would not have expected at the beginning of the race.
Yeah, Coxon must
to
have
see
had
both
something
Coxon
happen.
and Canola there in the middle of the pack.
Well, both Canola and Coxon are further back than they were a lap or two ago, so both of them must have had something happen to them, possibly together maybe. Where I think Canola was ahead, so maybe Canola had a moment and had a spin, and Coxon had to avoid him. And another guy I'm a bit surprised with where he is in the field position-wise is David Yates, down in 18th at the moment.
Well,
Of
he
course,
picked the car last moment. He was struggling with some problems with the car and the server and all that before that, and he didn't join the full season. So this is a bit of a stand-in situation. I don't think the quality of David Yates as a driver can be discussed, but the thing is, if you jump in last minute, you always are going to have a bit of an adapting learning curve.
That's definitely true. Look at this, it's the battle for the lead is heating up. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 covered by roughly 4 seconds.
Yeah, David Janda, as usual, is capable of having a nice rhythm, and he's not happy at all to see himself bottled behind David Juha Boss, with Luis Stephens coming up, challenging him. Now I can almost see the smile in Juha Boss' face. When he looks in the mirrors and he sees that his former foe, David Janda, is now suffering the attack of Luis Stephens.
Definitely, but I can also see his slight dread in seeing another lapped car. He has to try and work his way around.
Yeah, it's going to be a short-lived smile anyway, because if Stephens is able to go by,
there goes the lapped car.
Making room. Okay. Very nice drive, and I must say, when I look at this, I'm also looking forward to see what's going to happen in the kart series, because we will have Luis Stephens impersonating the hot Daniel Sullivan.
Oh, indeed, indeed.
The gentleman we interviewed here also, and I think one very underrated kart driver, a guy that did many brilliant things, but should have done much more if he had the opportunities. But very, very good at racing. So let's see what Luis Stephens can do in his seat, in his shoes.
Oh, and actually a fastest lap of the race so far for Juha Bollstar, 1:29.2. That's...
Yeah, if you're escaping from those both, I think at some point you're going to score at that lap.
Quiet.
There they go past Simon Watman. And the Lotus, I mean, Jesus. It looks like a skeleton of a car in front of the other ones.
For sure. It's a very graphical point of Chapman's
Thinking.
philosophy of
Yeah.
the lighter the
Very
car, the
right.
faster it'll go. Wattman trying to get out of the way, but that SS section is definitely not an easy place to try and get out of the way in.
And I can tell you what we are seeing today is absolutely no coincidence, because Juha Boss is absolutely motivated and focused in this championship. He has put a lot of laps here. He's very much focused and interested in it. And it's showing. Because the Coopers are hot here, but they are not the biggest, the best cars in the championship by any means. Preparation is what is showing up actually here.
That and making use of the car where it's actually very competitive, or more competitive than it probably will be in other places.
Exactly. I think that something else that is playing out here is that the people who are looking at the full championship, like Juha Boss, who has a permanent ride, they are thinking, what are the weaknesses and the strengths of my car? Because if we are talking about drop scores, which is what we will be seeing in this championship, if we are talking about drop scores, then I need to shine in the tracks where the Cooper can do the best with the handling, with the rear engine. Because at some point we will come to the tracks like, I don't know, Spa, for example, that are very high speed, and the Cooper is going to be like absolutely killed by the Ferrari engines there. So for the Ferrari drivers, for the guys who have that powerful engine here, it's a bit damage mitigation. But for you guys, the guys in the Coopers, it's about let's do the best that I can because this is going to be the result that counts. And then you have people like Anders Nilsson in the van wall, or Michael Drexler, the ones that are driving the van wall, which is about let's score points everywhere. And then towards the end of the season, we will see where we are.
Quite. That's also one of the potentially looser cars, from what I've understood, in the field. So that's also one of the things that could be holding it back a little bit around this Buenos Aires track in particular. We have very fast sweeping corners, and obviously if you overdo it, it can very quickly go wrong. I'm somewhat surprised, based on how this track is, that the Lotus ain't overall, seemingly at least, quicker than it is. I mean, obviously Dave Miller is in the top 10, but he's 40 seconds off the leading pack. But then again, as we mentioned earlier, it could be that he's trying to look after the car and try and speed up in the second half of the race, as the battle is on up ahead of him, though. Fredriksson and now Ray Riddall it is this time, battling it out. And I gotta say, for a driver who was looking to try and take it a bit easy, I'd assume, tonight, Fredriksson is doing anything but that with all the battling he's doing.
Well, that's the thing about Fredriksson. I mean, he's such a quality driver that he's actually taking it easy while it might look as if he's trying. We saw that in the USAC series, but he's very good at actually preserving the car. But look, I mean, the fact that he's having is foretelling of the nature of this circuit. He has Dave Miller right behind him with the Lotus. And look at what happens here in the main straight. There is a big chunk of real estate that is gained. But look at that. Now they come into the corners and Miller is immediately closer to them. So, I mean, that's the telling thing. In this track, the cars that have the best handling, they are shining. That's why the Coopers, the Lotus, and all of those, they are like, well, doing best and doing things that probably they would not be able to do elsewhere. But once we get to tracks where it's more about the engine and opening it up in long
Monza.
turns, yeah, Monza, Spa, even the ring probably, we're going to see how that changes
Maybe.
quickly.
I'd say the ring is a case of the back straight, the big engine cars is definitely going to be the thing to have, but everywhere else I'd definitely rather have the Cooper or the Lotus.
With due respect to the people thinking otherwise, because of the tight nature of the ring, it's all about being able to block the car behind you in the slow sections and then move away in the quick bits.
Indeed. Unfortunately, Jules Bouchard has retired. I'm just trying to quickly rewind and see if we can catch what happened, but it seemed to have happened a few laps ago, so missed that, but unfortunately Jules Bouchard is out. Sorry for cutting you off. Go ahead.
There goes Jant trying to sneak in the inside.
Not able to do it though.
But that's the thing about David Jones. I mean, he's the guy who will do everything with the less risks possible.
Oh!
I mean, if I had to compare him with any real racing driver or champion, that would be Niki Lauda. Because he's the guy who is always willing to win with the least effort, with the least damage to the car, with the least risk possible, but win.
Having raced with David when he was a bit younger, he has definitely matured into that kind of aspect.
Nashut said that we are 30 laps into the race and only 3 retirements so far, which is quite something. It's also indicating of
four retirements now.
4 retirements, which is quite indicating of the drivers having started to like realize what these cars are about. And
Oh, there are 5 even, but still.
yeah.
It definitely seems like everyone has heeded the take it easy, look after the car, get used to it before you do anything radical.
Yeah, although, for example, in the case of Keio Michiels, I think that he's starting to pay dearly for the fact that he's overdriving the car in every corner. Because if you look at the difference with Tim Hiller, who is smooth as silk, they were battling it some laps before, but now Hiller is definitely gone in the horizon.
For sure.
And there's Nilsson there going by David Jakes,
Looks
who's
like
making some room for him.
you.
Room in Texas terms. Like a full mile.
Well, that's definitely the easiest way to make room. Especially when there is the opening and possibility for it. I mean, next
Just
time...
trading positions. Ray Ridal and Dave Miller there. Here we got our 2 British gentlemen, and I think Ray Ridal had there some kind of confusion with the blue flags, because he actually let someone by, and it was actually for position. So there's Fredriksson, Ridal, and Miller. They're in a very tight pack together. And by the way, this being 58, it was no longer 100%, but we can still see to a big extent the cars keeping the famous colors that were awarded to every nation so as to differentiate them, because at the beginning of the Grand Prix era, they were, well, giving a color to the cars based not on the make of the car but on the nation of the automaker. So the Germans had the white ones, the British had the British racing green ones, the Italians, of course, had the red one. And let's see, I think the yellow was for the French, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes, I believe so.
or the blue.
But it ought to be noted.
The blue or the yellow, one of those.
The yellow sounds more likely to me, but I could definitely be wrong.
Maybe in our chat they know better. Which was the racing color for the French ones? The blue or the yellow?
And while we wait for that, it ought to be noted that while obviously it was called the British Racing Green, there were still different shades of green on the British racing cars.
Yeah.
Hence why we can see that the van wall in the hands of Bravery Doll up ahead is slightly a slightly darker shade compared to the as you are boast as another fastest lap, fuel burning off nicely there, while the Lotus has a slightly lighter shade of green.
Aha. So Jason Fitch tells us that France was blue, indeed. Germany was silver. I'm not so sure of that. I think it was actually white, but they went to silver because of the they were basically
the lack of
paint.
Yeah.
That's the mythical story that goes on like that. But in any case, I think that Germany had white. The original color was white. But yeah, France was blue. And who got the yellow then? Maybe the Belgians? I don't know.
Spain, maybe.
Could be. I know the Americans, as Jason said, because they arrived later to all this party. They got the stripes because all the colors had been awarded. So they said, no, you got the stripes.
Quite. And the battle is on here. Drexler and Coxon swapping position, and Bruno Chacon just ahead. So Bruno doing a fantastic job in that second works Cooper. Holding on to 13th at the moment, and being ahead of Coxon and Drexler. That's definitely a very well driven race so far for him.
The pressure is on here.
Definitely so. As we can see, that Coxon goes wide, locks
Coxon,
up.
And
Drexler
slips by.
Yep. So the Van Wall's disc brakes coming good. Compared to the drum brakes on that Maserati.
Opening the angle there to be able to get a better exit, but no, that doesn't work in these cars, because if you do that, you are overheating the tires. So you need a more gentle curve around the corner with this. There they go, sliding it through the corner. Nice line for Coxon here, touching the apex. But the other ones got the similar one.
Indeed. It's very much a... As long as you're taking your line and being consistent, there isn't, at least around this place, not a massive difference between the cars and drivers. But it's the case of as soon as you make a tiny error, it very quickly compounds to a much larger one. And speaking of the tires that's being locked, I think it was here somewhere. I could be wrong.
And it's amazing how Juha Boss is still able to keep it on
saw
the
that
lead.
elsewhere. Okay. Indeed.
Well, Juha and David Young, I mean. With that Cooper, these guys really know this is the track suited to the Cooper, so they want to score the points here. And back to the battle between Cox and Drexler and Chacon. There's Drexler now trying to make an inside pass. Chacon is usual with the early entry in a very steady line. Not something that makes your life very easy.
Well, it would
And
seem
Coxon getting antsy there, looking for the opportunity.
it would seem that that's what Chacon feels works for that particular car then. Well, it's definitely an interesting line.
Over the grass, over the curb.
Very wide for Drexler still. And it's interesting to see the slight difference in the tires too. I'd assume the Coopers are on Dunlop tires. Would that be a correct thing? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but in any case, I don't think it's going to be a huge difference.
Yes, the one thing I know for sure, which was something I looked up earlier when I saw it, was that there are 3 tire manufacturers, of which one was one I had never heard of, which was the Engelbert, I think was the name.
Yeah, the Engelbert tires, yeah.
Tires, which was a Belgian tire supplier and manufacturer who provided tires for the Ferrari team. Amazingly enough, it would later be picked up and then merged into what is nowadays Continental Tires company.
So we got some reactions here in the forum. Jules Bouchard said that he made the fatal mistake of fueling to 100%, which was obviously not needed for the race, so he was too slow and decided to park it.
Ah.
Yep.
Well, that's unfortunate, but it's one of those things you live and you learn from, I suppose.
So we got some info in the chat. Indeed, yellow was for the Belgians.
Thank you very much.
All Écurie Francorchamps cars were yellow. I pronounced it right. My apologies to all the French-speaking people. Because I know it must have sounded terrible, but I did my best. Okay, yes, that's how I think I remembered it. Yeah, indeed, yellow was for the Belgians. Nice color. Nice choice.
Indeed. Oh no, Coxon with a snagged brake! Oh, just about keeps the car off the wall.
Did he hit something?
Nope, he just held it off the wall, but that was one of those lazy snagged brake slides where you go, oh come on, please stop, just stop, can you please stop?
Just in time because the leaders were coming very hot behind.
Yep, just snagged brake on the downshifter.
What happened to Yannick? What happened to Yannick? Am I the only one who have lost him?
Oh, Yannick is back to 12th.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, let's have a quick look here and see if we can find out what happened to him. I wonder if he may have decided to pit.
He's on track. I can see him on track, but he went down to 14th.
Wow.
Must have been some out-track excursion or whatever.
Either an off-track excursion or he's actually trying to split the race into two stints and doing a stop.
He's fourth again on my score, so
so
maybe some lag in the game.
Yeah, that's definitely lag. Looked like it was he who lagged.
Yeah, sorry for the alarm, but
well then, must have happened at the sector line or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least good to know he's still in the race in fourth again. Hill is still in fifth, and Michiel's locking up and holding on to sixth. Nilsson closing in, 7 seconds behind now. In seventh for Van Wall. Fredriksson now up to eighth with Ray Ridolf close company and Dave Miller not. I thought that was Dave Miller, but Dave Miller further behind still. So Ray Ridolf and Erik Fredriksson have pulled away a little bit from him. So Miller still in the top 10. Luciano Rocha trying his best to close up, and Gabriele Del Piccolo still trying to work his way up the field in 12th now. And Bruno Chacon has opened up the gap a little bit to Drechler, and obviously Chacon nearly 10 seconds behind now. The drivers he was battling with, and a lap off the lead as well. Canola 16, Yates 17th, Vatman close behind him in 18th, Saber 19th, Adam Hackman in the BRM 20th, and August Watering, I believe, rounding out. No, Watering and Whited close together, fighting for what I think in some circuits would be called a wooden spoon, as in not finishing last.
You know, the fun about this race is that we are going to see many people like fighting it out, like you have us doing the best and David Young behind him and all that, and in the end it's like drop it scores. I mean, it's so little telling of anything, because the next race we can see maybe a very different car high up there, and in this case, like I said, you have us is wanting to make it count, because a victory is a victory, but this is so little in the terms of a championship. I mean, I just wish we could go back to this dropping score system in modern Formula One.
For sure.
Because it makes racing so exciting. On one hand, you got exciting races, people willing to do the best and all that, and on the other hand, it's like, the race is over, it didn't matter. Well, it didn't, and it did, and it depends. And it's quite interesting.
It definitely is, and it's one of those where you don't really know what's going to happen until you get to round 8, 7 or 8 in the championship, really.
And speaking of that, I should say that meanwhile we are on lap 41, which is past half the race. And unless I'm mistaken, nobody has stopped for tires yet.
Not that I've seen, at least. Oh no, oh dearie me! That's a car far off the road. That's Ray Ridol trying to pass
Yep.
Fredriksson, and that went very wrong indeed. He's lucky to be able to bring the car back on the road.
Yeah, look, there's some kind of Instagram challenge trying to bring all the cons sideways outwards. I think it was purely by accident.
Quite. Well, it was, but still it's one of those clenching moments in a race.
Whoops, more smoke there.
And it can be noted as well with the differences in the championship. Obviously here the Cooper will do, at least it seems, very well, as unfortunately Jason White has retired from the race. That's unfortunate. Him and Watering was having a good fight. Obviously we have some very sweeping open sections on this track. Next time out we'll be in Monaco. And it's like, what a difference.
Yeah, that's where in real life the real season started. And we are going to see there are some really nice things. Interesting things at least. Because it's going to be, funnily enough, one of the longest races in the series.
Indeed.
It's going to be 3 hours. And it's a matter of who can, well,
who can
I would
survive
say
and keep
hold
the concentration.
Hold the breath more. But that's only part of it. Yeah, it's very unforgiving between the worlds, and it's going to be quite interesting, yeah.
And I do reckon the Lotus drivers will be laughing around there with their very light car and shorter wheelbase.
Well, they didn't laugh so much in real life, but anyway.
Well, at least the car has the potential. The question is, will it survive?
Yeah, it has. It has.
Obviously, the way old Colin Chapman again philosophized it, also meant that the cars had a tendency to, shall we say, brake without previous warning.
Well, the limit was something that for Colin Chapman was not in the same place as for everybody else. Let's put it that way. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
For sure it is.
And here we have still Juha Boss, followed by Juha Junt, but Jesus Christ, David Junt. My goodness.
That's a Murrayism if I've ever heard one.
That's what you get when you are not talking in your mother tongue, you know? You have to pay more attention to what you are saying, to the pronunciation, than to the meaning or the concept of what you are saying. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. In any case, it's Juha Boss, followed by David Junt. Third is Luis Stephens. Fourth is Brian Janik. He had some fears that it had been a hairy ride for him, but no, it was just luck. He's there still in a solid fourth. Then comes Tim Hille, also a very good placing for Scuderia Ferrari. Sixth is Keijo Michiels, who incredibly has kept his tires in the place.
Actually pulled
Seventh
away from
is Anders Nilsson with the one wall. Eighth is Jakob Fredriksson, impersonating Joe Bonnier, if I even said that right.
Technically it was Joachim, but they shortened it to Jo for...
What be the right Swedish pronunciation for Bonnier?
Bonnier.
Bonnier, okay. Then it's Ray Riddle in ninth. And our top 10 is rounded by no other than Dave Miller in the Lotus. The Spider car.
Quite.
So I was talking about Ray Riddle, who is in ninth there with the one wall. That's the very typical ride from Ray Riddle. A discreet one, but there he is holding on to it and taking some points. And I'm looking forward to see what his impersonation of Mario Andretti in the kart series brings. And to round it up and make it even funnier, we put the wild Grant Riddle, his son, as the fictional son of it. I mean, He's going to be Michael Andretti in the series. It would have been nice to round it with me being Al Unser Sr. and Little Al being Al Unser Jr., but no. Little Al didn't have enough starts, so the car went to David Jakes, who has been a great driver, and I think he will be honoring that car very much.
Definitely so. But you will both still enjoy yourselves, I'm sure. You and Little Al.
Oh, yeah, we will. Oh, Simon Watman is stopping on the side? What happened to that Lotus? Is that a bird
Oh no,
engine?
that's a blown engine indeed. It's smoking and pouring stuff
first
out of it.
Barbecue. It's a Lotus barbecue.
Ooh, that's a big blowout too.
Meanwhile, Hackman is signaling pits, probably because of repairs. And he dives in. Yes, we got a car in the pits. That's a first.
It was the moment he downshifted and Hackman indeed into the pits. Well, that's as careful entry as if I've ever seen one. And there we go, let's see. Oh, changing tires by the looks of things, at least up in the air.
Up in the lead, there's David Jan glued to Juha Boss' rear. I mean, it's all the race it's been like that. You looks like a prospective dog sniffing at the rear of the next one in front. But he doesn't make any move.
I think, knowing David, he's just happy to sit there and wait for the last 10, maybe 15 laps, and then he'll start actually looking to do moves. And I mean, we've seen him give it the odd look as such, like down into this hairpin, for example, the final, what I call the final turn. So he is giving it a bit of a go and seeing where would I be able to try to give it a passing chance. But obviously just holding on for now and probably saving both fuel and a little bit of tires, just following with. Both of them starting to get very sideways going through that opening turn.
Some smoke going up from the tires there, which made me think that the tires are not going to be really happy with that. David Junt. He's really risking it there. Well, not risking. I mean, he's a very calculating driver, so I think he has by now already nearly even determined the angle at which Juha Boss is sliding, and he feels comfortable putting the nose of the car in there, knowing that nothing will happen.
I mean, they've run side by side previously in this race, so... Oh no, Richard Coxon is out!
Oh no.
So that's one Ferrari out of this race. Oh, and he actually drove it into the pits and parked it. I wonder if he ran out of brakes or something.
We will know when he comments in the forum or join us here in the booth.
Indeed. Well, oh, David Yates with
now,
a bit of an
I was
off-road
trying
excursion.
to picture myself in the place of Juha Boss. Juha's driving an absolutely great race. He's in for the championship. He's, look, because of the drop scores, he needs the Cooper to do the utmost here. He needs the win, okay? And he has there David John, a one-off driver, who is right behind him, someone who has nothing to win and nothing to lose. And it's like that guy, that quick guy, he's behind me, and he's going to absolutely spoil the fun at the end of the race for me. I think that's the feeling.
For sure. My reaction there was Dave Miller being muscled out of the way a little bit. Del Piccolo diving up the inside in the infield section, and there were a tiny bit of contact, no major damage I don't think, but Del Piccolo working his way up the field continuously in the what I think is the old Maserati. Scarlett is the Maserati indeed.
Yeah, he's up to 10th now. And remember what happened last year in Formula 186? Del Piccolo at the beginning of the series was quite puzzled, quite angry. He was not happy with the car. He was like, feeling, I don't know what this is all about. And then talent absolutely prevailed. He learned the ropes of it. And he was like, well, nearly dominating at the end of the series, doing a great, absolutely great job. So, I mean, Del Piccolo is the dark horse here. I'm pretty sure that he will be able to do great in some races.
Definitely so. Again, this
Oh,
is...
Yannick and Stephens. Oh, he touched Stephens, made him spin.
Oh, but he's holding
Very
back.
sportingly,
Yep.
Yannick waits for him. That was a nice touch. You got the British in front and the American in the rear, but the American showed that he can be a real gentleman.
Definitely so. That was unfortunate for sure, but nicely done. And I think Lewis Stevens is starting to struggle with the tires. He has continuously been dropping back from the leaders. And very crossed up on the exit here, for example, compared to earlier. So
Yeah, like I said, it's really a pity that we are not able to see the hood of the drivers and the tire wear that they have. But as you say, very cunningly, I think that Stephens is starting to have some problems with the tires. Look at Yannick! Look at Yannick! Sideways, he was quicker than Stephens on a straight line. That's quite telling.
oh no, Bruno Chacon has retired.
Oh no, I can't believe that. Really?
That's the one retirement per season he's generally been running at. I wonder if that's a disconnection.
That's right. I mean, that's the only black scratch in Steady Bruno's score.
Oh no, it's a disconnection.
Ah, okay. Oh, what unfortunate thing.
That's by far the worst kind of retirements you can have in any kind of sim race. I mean, when you make a mistake and you crash, it's like, okay, I made a mistake. Fair enough. The engine blows. Okay, I overworked it a little bit, or I made a mistake with the shifting there or something. You get a puncture and you go off. Okay, I touched the car, or I hit some debris, or nudged the wall the wrong way, or something. It's like, okay, you can sort of live with it, even though you might be slightly disappointed with yourself, but it's okay. But when it's a disconnection, it's nothing you can do about it. That's...
Yep.
That hurts. And I notice Ray Riddle has caught back up to Jakob Fredriksson, so it looks like the Van der Waal is definitely working better this late in the race. Possibly, maybe the disc brakes compared to the drum brakes in that Ferrari paying dividends from here on out.
Yeah, or the English teapot is not overheating as much as the Italian coffee pot.
Could definitely be a possibility as well.
It should be said that when the coffee pot is on, coffee will make you faster.
Quite.
Short term at least. I'm sure that the tea will make you quicker long term. Ah, what a beautiful image of these guys sliding it sideways there. It's amazing.
Definitely is.
So meanwhile, in the chat, we just gathered that Angel May has a name for her car.
And what's
It's going to be Mother Teresa, I guess, because of Teresa de Filippis. Okay, Mother Teresa. That's not a bad name, Angel.
That's definitely a good name. It's also a good name
Well,
for an Italian car.
from the Spanish point of view, Mother Teresa was actually Santa Saint Teresa of Jesus. Name's Day is on 15th of October. Mark that one. And Mother Teresa, the Saint Teresa of Jesus in Spain, she was like a very determined woman. I mean, if you could rank up in terms of masculinity, I think she would be well above many knights of the earth. She was a really determined woman that founded many churches and well, convents and whatnots. And well, that's a quite interesting name, Angel. I mean, if that car and you can perform half as well as Mother Teresa did here, that's going to be something.
Definitely so. Oh wow, I just noticed a tiny change in the standings. I wonder if traffic has caught up to Junt, because Junt just has dropped back and is now under attack from Stevens. And Bose is enjoying an 8-second lead.
Okay, Motor Teresa. That's what Angel May says in the chat. It's going to be not Mother Teresa, but Motor Teresa.
Close
But I tell
enough.
you something. If our own Teresa de Jesus had had a motor, it would have been with nitrous oxide. Motor Teresa, it's going to be. That's fine.
It's very nice indeed. Now the battle is definitely on for the podium positions. Junt.
Okay, wait a moment. Back to the action. What happened here? Juha is 8 seconds in front of David John.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I
We
noticed
missed
it too.
something, and that's very. Oh, whoa! Look at David John! Look at David John! Oh,
Wow!
Lewis nearly collected him there. Brian Janik is about to say, "Please move away."
I reckon that is what happened to Junt a lap or two ago as well. Or something similar.
Destroyed tires.
That was a very close call indeed.
Yeah, and look at Brian Janik. He's smelling the blood in the water. Goes for the inside.
He'll be going
Defense
Comet to
prevails so
Papa.
far. Well, you can't fault David because he just jumped into the car with
Indeed.
little preparation. So he actually had done a brilliant job so far.
Ooh.
Oh, well seen by Luis Stephens. He didn't
Nicely
really put a
done,
fight there.
David. That's a very
Well,
nice
that's
move.
what you get when you have quality drivers there. Okay?
Indeed.
Isn't it?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, Lewis saw him coming, and David pulled off a very, very nice move there. With that being said, Lewis trying to look back on it. Whoa.
That's not the place. That's not the place. Well, the grass is indeed David.
That's a very aggressive
That was
defensive
like,
work.
I'm going to make my car wide, and so wide that I'm even taking the grass with me.
That will have been very, very much on the limit. I wonder.
Look at Luis! Look at Luis! Got the better exit.
I wonder if David's engine is
Very nice
down
there
on
on the
power.
outside.
Nice move.
Great pass there. I mean, there is no braking zone there, really. Like, you just tap the brakes. But it was really a nice move. Remember what we were saying at the beginning of the race? It's about outdragging the other guy from the previous corner. Ah, and Brian. Brian doesn't want to miss the fun. So,
Oh, Junt dives once again into turn 3. Oh, Stevens with a better run this time. Nope, he got sideways, so that's Junt back past again.
if I was a reporter of the newspaper for this one, I would really like to have a shot of these three sideways, side by side. Three went into some corner. That'd be something, no? Wouldn't it?
Oh, for sure. Would be scary, but definitely a photo of the
So
ages
scary for
for...
them.
Definitely a photo for the ages for the reporters. I wonder if David is having to look after the engine or the fuel there, because yet again Stevens with a better run down the straight. Looked like Junt had no problem with the exit from the hairpin, but definitely down on some straight line speed by the look of things. And there again.
There he goes, there he goes. Ay, 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 ay.
This is definitely a heated battle. Whoa, and Junt outbrakes himself slightly. And Stevens trying to find his way past, but it looks like Junt just about is able to hold on for now. Well, the one smiling at all of this for sure will be Juha Boos, 9 seconds in the lead now, and can probably more
Oh, yes,
cruise than
absolutely.
run
Absolutely. I
run
mean,
hard.
this fight behind him has absolutely served him well. Because if it weren't for this situation, I don't doubt for a second that Juhabos would be having a much harder life.
Ooh, David Junt with a very
There
bad
goes
exit out of this.
defense.
Yeah, I reckon. Yep, very
And look at
easily
that. I mean,
passed.
it was again corner exit. You got it wrong, you pay dearly for it at the end of
Indeed,
the corner.
indeed.
And Junt is sliding much more, and I think that looks like worn tires. Yeah, he was over the curb, and that made him lose the traction that he needed to make it up in this straight.
Indeed.
And I should say, we have seen some snippets of the talent that Stephens has in previous series when he actually got the ball and then crashed in the first lap in Formula One and things like that. Because, come on, he's a very young guy, but those are snippets of talent, and I'm really looking forward to see him this season in kart because if that guy is on, if he's on it, well, he can be very quick, very very quick.
Indeed. Oh, and now it's closing up for Anders Nilsson against Keo Michiels. It was 7 seconds, and now down to 1.
And I think that Brian Janik is there, like counting 5, 4, 3, 2 until these guys crash out and waiting for it.
It's definitely a possibility. I'll take a quick moment just to make sure Lucy gets some evening dinner, so I'll be back in a minute or two. Meantime, it'll be a stationary camera. So I'll be right back. Enjoy the view. Oh no! Just noticed Fredriksson has retired.
Oh,
So let's see if we can catch that before we...
uy, Brian! Ay, 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 ay.
Oh, and Junt off. So Yannick in into that turn a little bit sideways. Oh, he spun. Oh, dearie me, that's some heavy contact by the looks of things.
Yep.
Wow. Well, that's very unfortunate indeed.
And it seems there is no waiting for the offended driver.
Indeed. I'll be right
Oh,
back.
David
Wow.
jumped in the grass. Oh, yeah. No, those tires are shot. And I think David must concede at this point. I mean, he's in fourth position and he should be like taking it easy and understanding that the tires have said, I've had enough of this, thank you. And we will see, because Boss is in the lead, but it's only 6 seconds. So it's not as if that is the safest position in the earth. Luis Stephens now with no opposition, nobody challenging him, is actually starting to hot lap. And he's catching up with Johan. Brian Janik in turn doesn't want to miss the fun. So after dispensing with David Junt, he's following Luis Stephens in the distance. But we are only 59 laps into the 80 lap race. So this could be quite more tight at the end than it is right now. David Junt climbing up the walls. Well, he would be if there were some walls. Since there are no walls, he's actually driving on the grass. But that's more or less the same intention.
Okay, so I am back. Looks like it's remained with Juha in the lead for the time being at least, all sideways and crossed up. As for Stevens in second. But only 5 seconds the difference now, so...
Yes, defense is closing in.
maybe we were wrong. Stevens was just looking after the tires a bit more than the rest earlier.
Well, I'm not sure, but whatever the case, poor Juha is not going to have a peaceful race in any case. First, he was absolutely challenged by David John, and now it looks as if Lewis Stephens is going to make his life miserable.
Indeed. And Stevens is in for the
And
full championship
just
too,
in
right?
case Stephen falls, there's Brian Janik, 1 second behind.
Indeed, indeed.
I guess that's the life of a racing driver, isn't it?
It's definitely a one step back, one step forward, half a step forward, half a
Well,
step
but
to...
look, we were talking at the beginning of the race about the people who were like being conservative and all that. Anders Nilsson is now up to sixth.
Indeed.
Quietly, silently, but he overtook Keio Sideways Mikils, who is now signaling for the pits. And I don't know why he's signaling for the pits instead of rising up the white flag and surrendering, because those tires must be like, oh,
Pardon me, I was being attacked by a cat.
attacked by cats.
A cat.
Okay. So meanwhile,
But
also
yeah.
Gabriele Del Piccolo is up to 9th. And we are starting to see, we're in lap 62 of 80, we are starting to see that the plot is thickening and that the drivers who are used to this and to conserve and preserve the tires and the car and everything, they're starting to climb up.
Indeed.
Keio in the pits now. I think he's going to ask for 4 tires and a new Ferrari.
Most likely a new set of tires at least.
And this puts Anders up to 6th position.
Only one position left to get some points.
Yep. Not that far behind Tim Hille. And David Junt, who is still looking for his tires. Juha Boss still keeping the same distance towards Lewis Stephens, although that's thanks to KMK has got a race control penalty. He drove too quick in the pits.
Oh no.
Yeah. So Juha Boss keeping the steady distance with Lewis Stephens, although Stephens was recently held up by a lap driver, and I would expect that after he dispenses with him, it will be much tighter.
Definitely very likely. Yep, especially when he locks up and goes wide like that.
There's Keio vipering his new tires and smoke in the air. Jesus Christ.
Well,
when I'm looking at Keio, it's like
definitely putting on a show.
you got the points, the style points award. Okay, he goes into the pits sideways.
It'll be the old doesn't matter
Because,
who
you know,
actually...
there's a reputation to keep up with.
Indeed.
Ooh. Nice one, Keio.
It's one of those where it doesn't matter if a driver went from last to first to win the race. In terms
If
of
you
driver
never
of the
saw a
day, he'd still get
Scandinavian
it.
flick between barriers with a yellow Ferrari of 58, there you can see one.
That we almost just have to bring onto the broadcast here. Let's see here.
The things that you can see in life, huh?
It's impressive indeed. That means Dave Miller gets into the top 10 again. Shane. Jake Sabre and Watering now in a bit of a battle. Watering a lap away though, but Sabre and Yakes with a possibility to battle.
So 5.3 seconds between Juha Boss and his pursuer. 5.2, and this is diminishing quickly. Yellow flag in this sector now. No longer. That's Adam Hackman on the grass. Louis Stephens. And gliding it by. Relentless pursuit of Juha Boss. If Juha wins this race, I tell you, he will really have earned it.
Indeed. This is definitely not an easy race nor an easy battle to win.
There's Brian Janik in third, not far behind Louis Stephens. And I can really see into his head, he's calculating. He's like, should I go for it? Shouldn't I?
Du vet Lucy att ligga sådär på tangentbordet blir inget bra. My broadcast assistant here is doing her best to cause some kerfuffle.
Were you talking sweet to your cat?
Yup.
I would like to say sweet.
Microphone muted. Sound resumed.
I have no idea
So,
what you said
Chaos
because
retired. In the end. Well, he retired as 13th. How appropriate. Yellow car, 13th
Microphone
and retiring.
activated.
unfortunately I heard nothing of what you said about Swedish and Swedes, but yeah, that's unfortunate for KO.
Oh, it's better like that, don't worry.
Well, it was unfortunate for KO, but he definitely put on a good show up until that point.
Yep. So, you have us only 4.4 seconds in front and now coming to lap traffic. This is going to be really tight. Because there is a bunch of cars there in front fighting it out for their own possession. Well, fighting. I don't know what to say when you say Ray Riddle sideways on the grass.
Definitely trying their best, that's for sure.
I mean, yeah.
And
I
he
mean,
was
they
in
were
a battle
fighting like that in
with-
the trenches in World War I, so I guess we can count that as fighting.
Well, he was in a battle with Gabriel Del Piccolo, I think it was.
So yeah, there is David Sauer, Gabriel Del Piccolo, and Thiago Canola. Well, some quality drivers there. So Juha should expect some smooth sailing through that group.
Should definitely be like that, but in this particular section, they have nowhere to go.
Yeah, but even so, for Juha it's a bit like, I have to let off the throttle. Luis is there. 4.2, 4.1. Oh, the distance diminished to below 4 seconds. Very quickly. Very quickly. Well, it should be the same for Luis when he arrives, but in any case, that gives him wings.
Definitely so. And closing in on 10 laps to go.
Needs to go past Thiago now. Thiago very skillfully. What else would you expect from such a driver? He allows Juha by. Now let's see. Luis is there on the back. Still on the stretch. Oof, what a melee here.
For sure.
So many cars together. Thankfully we have the levels that they didn't have back in 58. Because otherwise there's so many. Well, imagine. I mean, we can even see the cars in colors. In 58 they were seeing them in black and white. How would they differentiate them?
On television, for sure, that would have been difficult. Numbers and shapes of helmets, I suppose. And possibly the odd, for example, the Cooper Works cars looks to have a colored nose part compared
Correct.
to the privately entered Walker cars. So that would be one way to at least know if it's a Works car or a Privatier car.
So Juha is now 4 seconds in front. This seems as it would have given him some relief from Stephens. But Juha tank slapping there. 2.5 seconds.
That could be the mistake for the
2
race.
seconds. Luis Stephens behind Canola. Only one car in between them. 1.8, 1.7, 1.6.
Wow, it's definitely
Juha
closing up
recovers. Canola makes room.
now. Nicely done. Good job, Thiago.
But after all this, it's 1.7 seconds between them.
Indeed.
70 laps. Only 10 laps to go. My goodness. At some points it seems like it has been a long race, and sometimes it seems like, wow, it's just over.
It's just flown by.
Lots of action here. Smoking the tires there. 1.4. Stephens is smelling the blood in the water. And for Juha, oh, this must be really heartbreaking. Be here at the end of the race, have done so well so far, in the lead all the time, resisting even the challenges from David John.
He locks up heavily there, but looks like he
Yep.
was able to keep it
He's
on
feeling
the
the
road.
pressure. He's feeling the pressure. Del Piccolo there. Good
There he
move by him.
goes. Yep.
He made it very well, like making the most of it in the corner so as to not hold up Stephens and then let him by in the main straight.
Indeed.
Great driving there. Masterful driving.
Down to barely a second between them now.
But I guess Juha Boss would have rather have had Del Piccolo watch it. 1.6, 1.5, 1.4.
I don't think he'd ever tell us that was what he would have hoped for, but you're probably right.
Now it's the time for the cool head.
For sure, the question is which of these two will have the coolest head? Or will it be Brian Yannick to prevail when all is said and done?
Yes, of course. Do not forget Brian Janik. but he's being held up right now behind this pack of drivers. He wasn't able to sail by so smoothly. He's now behind Ray Riddle. I think he will get the slipstream if there is anything like that in these cars. I think we should ask Richard Wakes if there is actually that effect. But I'm betting if there was, we will be seeing it. But probably it's not so accentuated as in modern downforce cars.
No, indeed. It will probably be noticed when we're at the back straight of Nürburgring, for example, where you're reaching the top speeds. There you might notice a difference, but around here I honestly don't think so.
My goodness, 80 laps in these cars. So different cars, so different handling, so different drivers. And here we are, 8 laps from the finish with just 1.9 seconds between first and second. This is amazing.
It definitely is, and it proves that when all is said and done, practice reigns supreme and anyone can win in these cars, provided they have their day, I reckon. Lapped cars coming up again to deal with, this time David Yates, so that shouldn't be a problem, but again, you never know for sure.
No, I think Juha is giving it everything that he has now, because his distance is up to nearly 2 seconds again. So if Juha had anything up his sleeve, he's taking it out now.
For sure.
But the thing is, it's not just about getting there and overtaking and all that, but it's the pressure. I mean, for Juha, this is his race to lose. This is a quite complicated situation. 2.4 seconds now. Juha sailed better through the situation with the lap car.
It does look like that. When there's clean track and
Yeah, and Jakes,
no one
look at
around,
Jakes. I mean,
Bose is able
he
to...
made it perfect, absolutely perfect. I mean, you cannot fault him.
No,
It's just
indeed.
that Juha was more skilled there, or had better luck. Ui, Luis. He's overdriving it a bit there. If you see these cars counter-steering, you know that they are going slower.
New. And it's a case of he feels that he can and he has the opportunity. He really wants it, but
Yeah.
it's that fine line you need to walk. 5 laps to go.
The way to drive these cars, if you see the wheels parallel all the time, despite the car being sideways, then it's fast. If you see the nose pitching slowly down and slowly up, it's fast. But if you see counter-steering, fast and furious stuff and smoke up in the air, nope, sorry. That's 4th of July fireworks, but it's not quick.
Indeed.
1.8.
So Steven's gained a little bit back, but
smoking there. Well, whoever wins this race, I tell you, it will be very well deserved.
that's the truth right there. I reckon everyone will be absolutely spent after this one.
Yep. 24 and now 75 laps covered. It's 5 to go. It's 2.2 seconds between these two gentlemen.
Let's jump on board Stevens for a lap or possibly two.
So Juha seems to be able to keep it steady there. Meanwhile, Luis Stephens, as we have said, is 2 seconds behind. Brian Janik is 11 seconds behind. So the sprint that these both have been doing to make the quest for the win seems to have produced some effects. David John, despite everything, is there in 4th position, 24 seconds behind the lead, but there still. Tim Hill is only 4 seconds behind David John, so David John better be on his toes. Anders Nilsson is our 6th qualified, 51 seconds behind the leader. And then Gabriele Del Piccolo rounds up in the 7th. Ray Vidal is 8th, Dave Miller is 9th, and Luciano Rocha is there on the top 10. Very good driving by him.
Yeah, I think he'll be very happy with that.
So 1.6 seconds now. Luis Stephens is throwing absolutely everything that he has on the grill.
As is Bors locked up into that.
1.5.
Bors made a bit of a
mistake. It's visually tighter now.
Definitely is. This is going to be a stonking finish.
This twisty section, and you can't ask for more because they are very well paired in these cars. It's not as if you got a driver with an advantage of a so much better car. Stephens absolutely hammering it out. Juha responding 1.8. There seem to be some sections where each driver has more affinity. Juha now able to stretch it a bit. He loses time drifting there.
Stevens had a very good exit, so he should be gaining all the way down the straight.
1.5 seconds at this point. 77 laps.
3 to go.
And Juha's heart on the verge of the heartache.
And it's also a case of there's still 3 laps for the cars to break, which is even worse.
1.5 seconds. Tires are not going to be an issue. I mean, they are likely on the same situation. Brake fade, engine wear, who knows?
Indeed.
Smoking through the corner here, and that means lost lap time, 1.3.
Yeah, Stevens looking way more secure right now.
Yeah, this is a section where Juha isn't so comfortable. Juha is more comfortable in quick corners.
So this is close.
1.1. Uy, below 1 second.
295 kilometers, I reckon, driven here, and nearly 300 kilometers, and it's 1 second between them.
Yeah,
1 second for the win of the race with
where
2
Juha
laps
is
to
more
go.
comfortable. He's stretching it out now. Good exit here from Juha. And let's see how they come into this corner. Juha
with a lock up.
smoking a lot. Look at that. I mean, Stephens is not smoking that much. Juha is forcing the tires more, but still he's able to keep a 1 second gap. This is Juha's section, obviously. He's trying to make the most of it. 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. He's stretching it. But once we get to the twisty section, that's Stephens' domain.
Indeed. And it looks like Stevens is very good in putting the power down.
My goodness, Cooper should really think about upping the salary of these guys. More smoke by Juha, and the distance below 1 second.
8 tenths, 9
That's what you
tenths.
get. More smoke. Ay, 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 ay.
Oh, but Stevens very sideways, very sideways. Wow. Last lap. What is going to happen here? This is remarkable. So it's 1 second. Will Stevens get close enough to be able to have a go, or will it be Cooper 1-2 as they stand right now?
And it's a shame that we got that fight because Del Piccolo and Riddle are also having a great one. So as soon as they cross the line, we should be switching to that one.
We shall indeed.
Oof, you are going over the grass, over everything.
Looks like you might have done enough here. Unless he makes a big mistake, he should be able to hold on.
Yep, 1.3 seconds. That seems to be enough of a lead, unless you botch it.
Took it
And
very
they
easy
are
there,
nearly
so
there, and it should be Juha's victory.
yep, he should be able to coast from here. So towards the finish line comes Juha Boos, and Juha takes the inaugural win in the F1 1958 Championship. Big congratulations to Juha. He'll be extraordinarily happy with that. And I
Second
reckon
is
Lewis
defensive,
Stevens
Yannick.
likewise.
Here comes Yannick. He's the third. He will run out the podium with that Ferrari.
Nicely
Next
done.
is David Junt, who is coming out now. Hille.
So Junt will finish fourth.
And Del Piccolo botched it a bit, and he's not able to challenge Rai, who retains 7th.
So Hille will finish fifth, coming across the line now, finishing as the last points-paying position. Anders Nilsson in the van wall put in a very good, consistent show to finish what looks to be 6th here. Ray Riddle, as you mentioned, finishes 7th, with Gabriele Del Piccolo 8th. Luciano Rocha finishes 9th. Dave Miller rounds out the top 10 in the Lotus. Drexler coming through the final few corners to finish 11th for Van Wall. Thiago Canola finishes 12th, with David Yates in 13th. David Saber crossing the line now for Owen Racing Organization, the BRM, in 14th. Bortring finishes 15th, with Adam Hackman in 16th. Keel McKeel's, I believe the first of our retirees, in 17th. Then we have further retirees: Fredriksson, Chacon, Coxon, Wattman, Whited, Bouchard, Olsen, Kowalski, Angel May, and Sirinjano was unfortunately a very early retiree from this race. But Juha Boos with a win. What a fantastic effort in this opening race of the championship. Absolutely fantastic stuff.
User joined your channel.
And we are now joined in the booth by our race winner, Juha Boos. First and foremost, congratulations. And secondly, how tiring was that actually?
Very, very tiring and very stressful. Horrible. And to think Monaco will be an hour more if you finish that one. It was really difficult. David Yunt made me drive really fast, and as soon as I got rid of him, Lewis Stevens came back. Credit to them, they did really, really well, and I couldn't back off. In the last 30 laps, my rear tires were bust, so that was pretty interesting. Had a few moments. And even if my game says I've still got 79% of them left, the grip was gone.
That's one of those. Yeah, you got 79% left of the rubber. The problem is,
Not much of the grip.
indeed, there's no grooves in it. It's completely worn down.
We were speculating that with the dropped scores, and all the Cooper brigade were actually looking at doing it nicely here because this is a circuit that suits you more. Is that right? Or do you think that you will be able to challenge for the wins also in the more open venues like the Monza?
No. This at Monza are basically our best chance of getting big points, and elsewhere probably suffer on the straight.
So with dropped scores, this was your chance, and you were going to maximize it, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
I had to get the win here. No other choice. I don't know what happened to David Yunt. Apparently he says I spun him out, but I didn't see him. I only felt him. I don't know what went wrong there exactly.
Yeah, he had a moment at some point and then dropped back. And we saw that he had very worn tires, but still he was able to make it fourth. So it was not as if he really crashed it. I mean, we could see that the track favored the Cooper cars. And well, we were all the time thinking in the broadcast that, yeah, I mean, all the Cooper Brigade was going to say, this is one of the 6 results that I'm going to make count.
Oh, definitely. I prepared it well because obviously when we go to Monza or Rams, we not say we don't stand a chance, but
Yeah.
we have a lot more work to do to get on the pace there. And this was not saying the first sector of the track, but the second and the third one are made for this car. I think we did pretty well getting 3 cars in the top 4. So.
Yeah, definitely a very impressive effort from you guys in the Cooper cars.
So considering those dropped scores and seeing the schedule of the championship and the Cooper strengths and that, obviously you want to do well in any track that is possible, but where do you think are your best chances? I mean, what tracks are you aiming for? I mean, Monaco for sure is going to be one of those, right?
Yes, definitely Monaco. Looking at the rest of the schedule, I'm slightly less convinced that that's going to do any good to me. But in the third round, yeah, we could probably well at Zandvoort, as that's quite twisty, despite being a high-speed track. And obviously the Nürburgring, as we're doing the Nordschleife. So yeah, there's a few tracks where we could do well. I think we could even surprise at Spa, because this thing can corner pretty well. Just 3-4 more tracks, so we should be able to get big points. Hopefully the Ferrari guys will take points of each other at the tracks, so we don't.
Yeah, so it's a bit like throwing a coin in the air. In that, if you get the good results at the tracks that you know you are strong, then you can mount a championship challenge. But if you fail at any of those, it's going to be quite hard.
Yeah, that's it. You have to maximize all the opportunities you get.
Okay.
I don't know how interesting the race was for you guys watching, but it can't have been that bad.
Yeah, it was quite
Oh, it
fun.
was
Quite
because
fun to watch.
after 80 laps, lower than 2 seconds distance between you and the next qualified, that was something.
Oh, glad we put up a good show.
For sure, you did. Out of interest, did you feel any brake fade towards the end of the race, or were you having a good time with the brakes as well, despite the rear tires, obviously?
Actually, I rarely overheated the brakes, so didn't have a problem with it. The highest I went was 250. So, when I said this track's really good, I mean, if this had a bigger braking area somewhere, it would have been a disaster. But I mean, the braking was just as good or as bad as you wish for the race.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I'm out of questions. So, well, I got one question left. Let's do the trivia question and answer.
That's right. We need to answer that one.
So, the question for you all this evening was who set the fastest lap in the 1958 Argentine Grand Prix? That's the fastest race lap. Was it A. Juan Manuel Fangio? Was it B. Sterling Moss? Or was it C. Mike Hawthorne? We already had your guess, Alberto, with A, but what do you think you have?
Mine is likely the wrong guess, but anyway, I'll go with that because Fangio was on his way to retiring back then.
Mm-hmm.
Sterling Moss was on his prime, as well as probably Mike. So I said A, but I'm waiting for the bell of quack 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 quack.
I'll go with Hawthorne.
And the correct answer is Ace. Juan Manuel Fangio.
I can't believe that.
Despite being on his way to retirement, clearly home track advantage and all that.
Yeah, the old master has still something going.
Indeed.
Okay, I take that.
Understandable. Congratulations there, Alberto. Let's see if I can see any others who answered no. Okay. Unfortunately, Angel May got it wrong, but that's
Not a bad
perfectly okay.
to this season.
Indeed. So, just to quickly remind you all of what is coming up, and then I think we will start finishing off the broadcast. Next weekend, on January the 16th, we will have round 1 of 6 of the 2022 Lucas Vidra Trophy. It'll be the BMW M1 Pro cars around Brands Hatch. The cars are fantastic to drive. The track is a challenge for the cars and for us drivers, so it's going to be a very interesting race. We don't have a broadcast planned after that, as far as I'm aware, but there are cars available for anyone watching wanting to take part. So you're very much welcome to join in if you want. And 2 weeks from now, we will have the Checker 200, the first round out of 15 for the 1987 Kart Championship, and that is promising to be a very interesting race as well. Any final thoughts for this event, Alberto, before we finish off?
Well, like I said, this was Cooper domination field, but in the next races it's going to be probably a struggle after Monaco. So I'm looking forward to see what Monaco brings on, because if the Coopers do well there, then we can say that they are on the route, on the way to mounting a championship charge. But if they fail at Monaco, that's probably going to be a turning point, even if it's early in the season.
That's definitely a possibility. It'll also be interesting in my view, especially for Monaco. We saw the Lotus there or thereabout in this race. I would still think that the Lotus would have a good chance at Monaco. And based on what we saw here and based on the cars, I would not want to drive the Maserati T1 around Monaco. Long wheelbase and seem a very heavy car. But for this event, really good battles, and a lot of action, which was nice to see, and watching these cars full-wheel drift is a joy. So yeah, once again, big congratulations, Juha, on more or less a flag-to-flag victory, and thank you to all our drivers for taking part and putting on a great show. Really good fun to watch, and I look forward to Monaco in a few weeks' time. But until the Czech 200 in 2 weeks, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in and watching, and I hope you all will have a great couple of weeks. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks' time. Good night, and take care, everyone.
User left your channel. User left your channel.